Hello, my name is Robert Dean Steele. This is, of course, YouTube Live. It happens to be Saturday, 2026, May the 9th. My goodness, it is going by so very fast. And I'm hoping that you are enjoying a beautiful May day. I got up this morning, I looked outside, the sun was shining, and it was a beautiful May day. And so I am so glad to be with you today. And today we're going to be talking about before your life becomes abundant, there are certain things that happen. So, Father, bless our time together in Jesus' name. Amen. Have you ever noticed that before you actually get what you're waiting for, life has a tendency to take away your comfort first? You see, many of us, we like our comfort. We don't want to risk things, but we need to recognize that if we're going to progress to the next stage, it means that we have to get rid of certain things in our lives. And so that's what we need to be ready to lose everything. You know, it was Jesus who said, a man can gain the whole world and lose their soul. So it's very important to recognize that comfort and also as well, not and staying the same way you are can actually lead to a very uncomfortable situation. There's a wonderful story found in the Old Testament. It's during the time of a man whose name was Elisha. Elisha, of course, was the apprentice of the great prophet whose name was Elijah. Now, Elisha was living in Samaria at the time, and what was happening was the nation of the Arameans, or they were known as the Syrians, came down and attacked the city of Samaria. They actually surrounded the city of Samaria, and it became very uncomfortable. In fact, it was so bad that a famine was starting to take a hold of the city. Well, according to the story, there were 10 lepers, and these lepers were living in the city because of the fact that they were forced to live in the city because of being surrounded. The whole surrounding countryside was, of course, filled with the Arameans, the Syrians, and so the city was in trouble, and these it had gone so bad that the lepers basically said, if we stay where we are, we're going to die. Now, if we go out to the Syrians, there is a possibility that we're going to perish, but we can't stay where we are. So they made the decision that they were going to go out to the Syrians. Now, what had happened at that time, of course, was the prophet was in the city, and the king was looking for a scapegoat. And so he sends one of his captains and says to basically Elisha, he says, it's all your fault that we are in this position, not because of what the king had done, because the king, of course, had been, attacking, and also there was this warfare going between himself and, of course, the Syrians. And so that's why the Syrians came down and attacked the city. They had this warfare going on, but the king was looking for a scapegoat. So he said, let's make the man of God, let's make him the scapegoat. You see, that's what bad rulers always do. They're always looking for someone to blame. And you see it so often in history where there is one particular group that, or one particular person that is singled out for the reason why, for their own actions. Basically says, Elisha, you're the reason in this problem. Elisha says, I am not the reason for this problem. I'm going to let you know something. The answer is on the way. He says the Lord himself is going to deliver us from this situation. And he says, in fact, within the next 24 hours, God is going to, of course, answer and bring about his particular deliverance. Well, the guy laughed at him. And Isaiah or Elisha said, "You know what? It's going to happen because the Lord himself is going to show his power." Well, what happened in the night was there was a large noise outside the city. It was actually thunder and lightning and all kinds of natural phenomena. And the Syrian army got afraid. They got so afraid that they thought there were another army coming towards them. And you know what they did? They got up and they left the city. And they left so quickly that they left all their provisions behind and they literally ran back to Syria. That was fantastic part of the story. Well, these particular lepers, they made the decision that they were going to go out to the Arameans, to the Syrians, and they went outside the city and they found that the entire Syrian camp was abandoned. And so they, of course, ate, drank, and be merry. And they said, you know, we shouldn't really, we shouldn't let the uh, do this all by ourselves. Let the people know. So they went back into the city and told the king, and the king said, no, that's not true. Well, what happened was, of course, he sent out some scouts, found out exactly that it happened, not only, of course, to what Elisha had said, but also to what the lepers had said. And so the people rushed out towards, of course, the city and got all the provisions, and the famine was over. But you know what? It was very uncomfortable for the people at that time. I have discovered that before you and I, of course, go into a time of abundance or even of peace, there is a struggle that often happens. Have you watched many of the television presentations, what we're talking about, the dramatic presentations? Remember the movie, you know, the series of movies, which of course was all about the Twin Towers and, you know, the J.R. Tolkien books, and how that they got right to the edge and then all of a sudden a victory came in some form. And that is often how it looks like in life. It looks like you're going down for the third time, and then all of a sudden, something happens that turns the entire situation around. So you discover that what you've been waiting for takes your comfort first. It tests your patience. It pulls you away from the people that you used to lean on. And the reason is that because you are growing. In fact, it says in 2 Peter 3:18 to grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. It means that every single day you and I should not be afraid to have a fluid lifestyle. When I'm talking about a fluid lifestyle, you basically have situations where all of a sudden you grow and you don't even know. Let me share a little story with you just to illustrate that. About 3 days ago, I had two lawnmowers that were, one was a brand new lawnmower. Well, not a brand new one, but a year old. And I had bought it last spring. And from the very moment that I bought it, it was giving me trouble. I couldn't figure out why it continued to, it would start and then it would stop. And then I had this old lawnmower that I'd had for about 8 years. And so I took one of the lawnmowers to the local hardware store. In my community, of course, we have customer service at our local hardware store. It's not like hardware stores in the city. I lived in the city for 15 years. And when I took something to the hardware store to get fixed, they often said, well, we can't do anything about it. But because I had bought this lawnmower from this hardware store, I took and said to them, you know, I need to have this thing looked at. And one of the salespeople said, "No problem. We have a man here who can look at it, and he may be able to get it going." I took my old lawnmower over to a young man that was in my church, and his wife had said to me, "My my husband can is kind of a small engine expert. He could probably get it going." Well, the next day, I got a call from the hardware store and said, you know, your lawnmower is perfectly fine. So I went over and picked it up and I talked with the guy, and he said, if you have any problems, this happens to be the procedure that you need to follow so that you won't have any problems. He not only fixed it, but he gave me the knowledge and also as well the experience of how to fix that lawnmower. So that was wonderful. And then I got a call from the young lady who said to me, my husband has been able to get your old lawnmower going as well. I thought, fantastic. I now have two working lawnmowers. And when I went up to pick up the old lawnmower, which had run for 8 years without any problem, but all of a sudden just died, I said, Adrian, what is going on with this lawnmower? He says, well, I took the muffler off. And he says, as soon as I took the muffler off, he says, I pulled it and it started up. You see, in these older lawnmowers, what you have to do is you have to make sure that and I didn't know this. He said, you have to make sure that the carbon deposits don't build up, because what will happen is they will suffocate your lawnmower. So basically, he took the muffler off, cleaned it all up, started it up, and it ran perfectly fine. Well, yesterday I took that old lawnmower and went over and cut my daughter's lawn. I cut my own lawn with the new lawnmower that had been refurbished or fixed. And so basically, it was uncomfortable because I had two lawnmowers and the grass was basically growing long and I didn't have anything to cut them with. And I was actually thinking about buying a brand new lawnmower. But because of that one action of taking it to the local hardware store and taking it to a young man who had the ability to fix the lawnmower, and both of them told me, the hardware store technician and this young man told me how to, of course, keep those lawnmowers running perfectly fine. I didn't know what was going on, but both of these individuals told me how to keep these lawnmowers running. And you know what? I grew a lot that day when it came to experience and also knowledge and understanding. And so when they break down or something happens, I know exactly what to do to get them up and running again. And so sometimes things happen that, test our patience, but also as well, it helps us to not only, get rid of certain things, but also it can help us to find new people to lean on and to grow. And also, as well, life often puts us in seasons where the only thing that you have left is your faith and what you are building. That's right. You and I are building a life. And so sometimes we find ourselves in different seasons. For example, and this is kind of an ironic situation, 2 weekends ago, where I was living, we had what we call a spring snowstorm. That means that the roads were so bad that there was a blizzard actually happening. Yet 2 weeks later, we are enjoying beautiful summer like weather. And that was just a reminder that even in the so called spring season, we can have winter storms. And right now we're enjoying a beautiful spring season. We're heading into summer. And in fact, I was chatting with my daughter-in-law just the other day, and I was asking her how the spring planting situation was, of course, progressing, because I have seen around the area in which I live, because I live in a more rural area, the biggest industry here is farming. So a lot of our farmers are now out spraying in their fields, and very soon they're going to be heading into the fields, maybe even this weekend, into the fields planting their crops. And they are looking forward to being able to plant. In fact, last Sunday, I was having a conversation with one of the local farmers, and he said to me, he says, I'm getting ready to plant. Because I asked him, he says, I'm just doing some preparation on my different machinery, but then I'm going to start planting. Well, those farmers are heading into the fields and they're going to do their spring planting. And then they're going to be in a season where they're going to be waiting to, of course, for the crop to come up. And then over the summer season, they will be doing different things to be able to get ready for, of course, the harvest, which is the big season around here. And that will be happening, of course, from mid-August to about mid-October here in this particular country, depending on what the crop is all about. In 2 weeks' time, for example, where I'm living, most of the people are going to be putting in their gardens. They may be putting in peas, they may be putting in carrots, they may be putting in, different types of vegetables. My wife, for example, in 2 weeks is going to be going to the greenhouse. And one of the things that she loves to do is she loves to cover our entire yard with flowers, and she puts them in flower boxes and puts them in different places around the house to basically look and make the house look wonderful. And we're coming into that season. And then, of course, we'll be enjoying a beautiful summer season where, you go out and you enjoy nature. I live in the province of Alberta. So one of the things that my wife and I are going to do is we're going to be heading to Banff and to Jasper. I have a cabin that is just in north central Alberta on a beautiful lake. And so my wife and I will be going and spending some time at that cabin. Also, as well, we are going to be getting our camper out, and we're going to be enjoying different places around where we live. For example, we're going to be spending some time down in Drumheller. Now, Drumheller, of course, is known for its, for the dinosaur different exhibits and things that are there. So we'll go down there and enjoy the Badlands and enjoy the beautiful dinosaur park, which is the richest deposit of dinosaur bones in the entire world. Dinosaur Park. This is where I happen to live in the province of Alberta. We're going to be enjoying a beautiful summer season. And then, of course, fall will come, and fall will demonstrate and show us the beautiful fall colors. And then, of course, winter will come and the season of snow will be upon us again. Each and every season has both its challenges and its beauty right now. For example, every summer, the price of gas where I live goes up exponentially. Well, of course, because of the war that's going on right now in the Middle East, the prices of gas have gone astronomically high. And that also causes a major challenge because of the fact now going to the pump and, of course, filling up with gas is becoming more and more expensive. And the challenge of just day-to-day life can also feel very overwhelming as long. And it tests your patience. But you have to understand you're building something. You're building a life that can be a life of purpose and a life of also as well abundance, or it can also be a time where you understand that you need to stand upon the resilience, upon the in what I'm trying to say is inside of every one of us is a certain aspect of life that is going to come out as you and I find ourselves being stretched. That is a great way to look at things. And basically, you say to yourself, I'm building a life and I'm going towards something, and I'm going to continue to be purposeful. And also, as well, I'm going to make sure that this is the life that I want. You and I, every day, for example, we can build the type of life that we want. And sometimes it almost feels like punishment, but it's not punishment. It's preparation. That's right, preparation. For example, if you want to improve something, often what it means is you have to tear it down and start all over again. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I was working on a house that I had in the province of British Columbia. My wife and I were trying to decide whether or not we were going to live in this house or we were going to sell this house. It was one of those transition periods. And we were doing a full reno on this house. And all of a sudden, I went down into my daughter's former bedroom. And I was looking down and I had noticed that there was some water stains on the gyprock or on, the wallboard that was there. And so I followed it down and I realized that not only down near the bottom the gyprock had been stained, but the entire area had been water stained. So I literally had to take off the old gyprock. And then as I looked behind, I realized that I had two or three major problems. Number one, all the insulation was wet. So I pulled back the insulation and then I found these great big huge ant nests. That's right. In the gyprock, the ants had gotten into the wall and had made these giant nests. So I had to, of course, fumigate and get rid of the ants. I also had to tear out the gyprock, tear out the insulation, and then also as well, I found that the boards underneath were also rotten. So I literally had to take out half the wall. And so it was right down to the concrete, take out the old insulation, take out the strapping, take out the gyprock, and start all over again. I had to, literally fumigate to get rid of all the ants. I also had to find out where they were getting in. I had to, of course, find out where the water source, and I had discovered that I had a downspout that had no extension on it. And so I had to get an extension. I had to do all kinds of work to make it back up. And I did get it all back to where it needed to be. And when I sold the house, the all the damage was repaired. Everything was taken. It was not just on one wall, but it was on two walls. And so it took me about a day and a half to get everything cleaned up, everything, of course, fixed. But it was one of those unexpected situations which life often brings to us. But then on the other side of getting everything fixed, I learned a whole bunch of new construction techniques. I had done things I had never done before. I had never fumigated a house. I had never, had to go and find a source of where the water was coming and also where the ant was coming. And basically, I also had to go to the side of the house and I had to re-cement a part of the house and clear up a certain area of the house where the ants were getting in. It was a real learning experience. And I thought to myself, am I being punished? No, it was simply preparation. It was doing what was necessary to be able to make the house better. And the simple fact was that after we had completely renovated the house, we were able to sell it for twice as much as we were expecting to get. Our real estate agent was incredibly happy with the end product. And it took us a few weeks to get everything ready. So it's not punishment, it's preparation. You can't hand a person the life they dreamed of until they become a version of themselves that ready to carry it. For example, you want to become stronger. Well, if you want to become stronger, what's going to happen is you're going to have to hit the gym. If you're going to be more flexible, then you have to, of course, do the exercises of flexibility. If you want to have, be wiser and smarter, it means that you're going to have to go to school and get educated. I was talking with one of the young men that I am involved with when I drive school bus, and I was asking him, I said, so you're heading into exams in the next couple of weeks. He said, that's right, because where I live, of course, the young people who are between the ages of, or I should say the grades of 10 to 12, they are going to have their provincial exams. That means that they're going to have to be tested on what they're going to be taking, the different courses. This particular young man was taking social study, English, and science. And so he would be writing exams on this, and he is being tested because if he fails, he's not going to go into, of course, the next grade. In his case, of course, he won't be able to graduate. So he says, yes, I'm going to have to study very hard so that I can, pass these provincials exams so that I can graduate. He understands that he can't go to the next stage of life without the testing. And often that is what happened. About 3 weeks ago, I was required by my school division to take an online test or an online course on improving my driving skills. Well, I went through the entire course, and then I went to the study questions. So they had each section of that particular course, they had what they called, a little quiz. And so I went through each one of the quizzes and found the answers. And then, of course, I had to take the test. And I took the test and I passed. But you see, I had to go through every single module. I had to learn what it was that I needed to learn. I needed to do the quiz. And then only then could I move on to the next module. Well, I went through 13 modules and then I wrote the test. I passed the test. And so I was able to receive a certificate that says I now had an advanced driving course. Well, it was all part of what my job description of what I needed to do to be able to, of course, continue doing what I needed to do. And so often what happens is we have these tests in life where we become more knowledgeable, we become more resourceful, but also as well, we become a better version of ourselves. And guess what? This stripping down is actually a building up. One of the houses that I was doing a renovation on was that I had to strip things down right down to the bare bones. And when I stripped it down to the bare bones, I discovered certain things that needed to be fixed. I fixed those things and then improved the home so that both my wife and I would be more comfortable in that home. And that's often what happens. Before we can build something up, we have to strip and tear away that which is rotten. And that often happens, whether we like it or not. Some of the habits that we have developed, some of the views that we have taken on, some of the things that we have, taken for granted to improve ourselves, they have to be taken away. That's called development. That's called growth. That's, for example, this spring, just a couple of days ago, I had to go around and prune my different trees that I have around my house. The reason I do that is so that they can be more fruitful, that they can grow. When, for example, we get ready to do our different planting that we do, that means that we're going to have to till the soil. That means that we're going to have to get rid of the old root systems and the weeds that could possibly come up. And then throughout the year, if you have a garden or if you have a vegetable patch, you're going to have to weed it, because if you don't weed it, then the weeds are going to come up and they're going to choke the productivity of that particular area. Right now, for example, many of the farmers are spraying their fields. They're putting herbicide and pesticides on their fields right now so that their crop can grow. That's what you need to do to have an abundant life. You have to strip away, you have to take those things out of your life that are basically holding you back. Those things that are keeping you from being fruitful and productive. That's not a stripping down, that's a building up. And we need to do that from time to time. We need to prune at our lives. You know, it was Paul who said simply this: we need to examine our lives. We need to say, okay, what is in my life that is holding me back? What is in my life that is keeping me from becoming more fruitful, more understanding? And those are the things that we need to get out of our lives to be a more gracious, more loving, more understanding person. Believe it or not, we have biases, we have prejudices, we have certain views that will hold us back. For example, and this is one of the ones that I talk about so often. If you have been hurt by somebody, if someone has betrayed you, you know what happens? If you're not careful, it can actually make you hard, brittle, and also prickly. What I'm talking about is the fact that that hurt can become a root of bitterness. And that root of bitterness can actually colorize and make you see people with the potential of everybody hurting you. That's why you need to practice forgiveness. That's why you must pray. That's why you need to, instantaneously choose to not allow that thing to take away your sensitivity, take away your softness, take away your love. Because when you're betrayed, the first thing that you want to do is withdraw into yourself. You say, I'm not going to let that thing happen again. And the many ways that people make that happen is they put up walls, they put on masks, they basically withdraw into themselves, because the pain and the sorrow and the betrayal and the hurt is real. I understand that. But when you practice instantaneous forgiveness, and when you say, I am not going to allow this thing and this person to control my life, I'm going to choose to forgive. I'm going to choose to release this thing. I'm not going to hold on to it. I don't want it to become a part of my life. And you make the decision that no matter what anyone does to you, you're not going to do the same to them. You are going to choose to forgive. You're going to choose to release this thing, and you're going to choose to move on. That doesn't mean that that person, it means, what it means is this, is that you know that they have the potential to hurt you. It may mean a breaking in the relationship. It may mean that when you have to interact with that person, that you put up certain boundaries and certain safeguards. That's what it means. But it doesn't mean that it kills your love for others. It doesn't mean that it kills your compassion or your sensitivity. And it also doesn't destroy your optimism and belief that there are still good people out there. Often when we are betrayed, we begin to believe that everybody is like that person. And we need to recognize that not everybody is selfish. Not everybody is narcissistic. Yes, everyone has the potential of being selfish. Everyone has the potential of being narcissistic, but not everybody has chosen that path. And those people that have not chosen that path, those people that have chosen to grow beyond those experiences, are, of course, the type of people that we want to connect with, because those people have not allowed the pitfalls and the troubles of life to harden them. They have chosen to rise above them. And you and I can be those type of people right now. So what do? Well, we stay patient. We stay ready and we become the type of person and understand that every day we are growing in the grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. We are becoming a better version of ourselves, not what you were, but what you are becoming. You see, the trials and tribulations, the problems that we face are actually preparation. They are not punishment. We are becoming a better version of ourselves. When I was talking about those lawnmowers, I am not a small engine mechanic. I will tell you that right now. Also, as well, I'm not a great plumber. I can do certain mechanical things. I can fix an old truck, for example, because the simple fact is, so old trucks are simplistic. Um, I went down yesterday to, of course, go get a brand new battery for my 1965 GMC truck. I have a classic truck. And I went down to my local Napa dealer and I said, do you have this particular battery? And the lady says, the last one just went out the door. She says, I'll take your name and I will phone you to let you know when the new battery comes in. Well, she hasn't phoned me yet, but when she phones me, I'm going to be able to go get that battery and I'm going to be able to open up the hood of my truck and put a new battery in. Why? Because I've had to do that a few times over the years. I've been basically driving since 1974. And so that gives me a long line of experiences of motor vehicles and learning how to do certain mechanical things. I also grew up in a time period where vehicles were very simplistic. My 1965 truck is very simplistic. It, basically has none of the new computerized things that most vehicles have today. So backyard mechanics such as myself can basically do different things. I have torn out 3 or 4 motors and have been able to put them back into vehicles. I've done that. The old style vehicles. I've been able to fix water pumps and, the basic maintenance that needed to be done on old vehicles. That's one of the reasons why I have that 1965 truck, because it's very simplistic to fix. What needs to be fixed, I can probably fix. Well, of course, I can't fix the newest vehicles. For example, a week ago, my wife and I, she has this brand new, or not, it's a fairly new Chevy Spark. And I knew right away that there were certain things that I couldn't do on fixing it. So we took the car in and had it done at a mechanical shop. Not because I probably couldn't have done it, but I didn't have the time to it. And so when I took it in, an hour later, the shop phoned us and said, everything is done. So there are limitations of what you can do, and there are also things that you can do. But experience has been my greatest teacher. I have gone out many, many times and found that the battery was dead and the vehicle wouldn't start. I've gone out many times and saw the tire flat and knew that there were certain things that I had to do. For example, this week, my wife and I had gone to a local city and had noticed that the car seemed to be a little squishy. So when I got home, I decided to check the tire pressure. And I found out that because the car had been sitting most of the winter, guess what? The tires, 2 of the tires were soft. Well, I knew exactly what to do. I took my air pump to it. I have a couple of different means and methods of air pump and being able to, put air in tires. I was able to, put the air in the tires. And my wife had to go to the city the next day. And she drove to the city perfectly fine. The car wasn't squishy at all. She had no problems at all because of what I had done the day before by fixing the tires. You've got to have, for example, when you're driving an automobile, you've got to have even tire pressure on all 4 wheels. In the case of my wife's car, it was 35 pounds because during the summertime, you have to have just a little bit more air in the tires than you do in the wintertime. So the simple fact was, I put the right air pressure into all four tires. It went smooth for her, and especially because she drives a very small car. So the simple fact is, how did I learn that? I learned that by trial and error. And so you need to understand, you need to be patient, and you need to stay ready, because what is being made for you and making what you become is, of course, experience. And understand, every day you're becoming a new version of yourself. Every day there are experiences that will make you wiser, will make you more resourceful, but also as well grow you as a person. That is what I'm trying to get across today. So understand that when bad things happen to you, they can turn out for good. Because remember, it's Romans 8:28 that says all things work together for good. Doesn't mean all things that we face are good, but on the other side of the equation, after everything has been done that you have to do to make things work, it is wonderful. I remember just a couple days ago when I got that phone call from the local hardware store, and I got the call from the young man who had fixed my lawnmowers. The day before, I didn't have any working lawnmowers. I was thinking about buying a brand new lawnmower. And as I was walking home with those lawnmowers, because the simple fact is, because my truck wasn't running, I couldn't throw them in the back of the truck. So I had to walk those lawnmowers home. But as I was walking those lawnmowers home, I was thinking to myself, yesterday, I didn't have two working lawnmowers. Today, I have two working lawnmowers. And I took that old lawnmower and I went over to my daughter's place yesterday morning and I cut her grass. It was an absolute delight to be able to take that old lawnmower. And it was interesting that the young man who had fixed that lawnmower said to me, you got to keep this lawnmower. He says, it's an old style lawnmower. He says, these new lawnmowers are made of certain materials. He says these older lawnmowers, like the one that you have, he says is made of steel and metal. And he says, this thing will run forever. And he was right. It had been running without a problem for several years. All I had to do every spring was go in and clean out the filter, put new gas in, take out the spark plug, and clean up the spark plug, and it ran every single time. I didn't know that there was carbon deposits that were happening within, of course, the muffler. And he saw that, and he took the muffler off and cleaned out those carbon deposits. And he said every spring, he says, take off the muffler. He says, clean out the carbon deposit. And he says, this thing will run forever. And he's absolutely right. There I was yesterday pushing that old lawnmower, and it had power and it was working just beautiful. And it was wonderful to know that. And he even showed me how to take off that muffler and how to clean it. He says, this is what you need to do. It was, my growing experience. I didn't know that 2 days ago. But because of what had happened, I now know what to do to make both those lawnmowers run perfectly. I was shown by, competent and also patient people. I asked the questions, and both these men were very patient with me. They said, you do this, you do this, you do this. I said, so if I do it this way, it'll work. They said, yes, do it that way. I asked the questions, and now, of course, I have the knowledge and the experience of when these things happen, because things happen. Guess what? I know what to do. And you can do the same as well. Don't ever underestimate your particular gifts. So that's my thoughts for you and I today. So understand that when things happen, you can become more resourceful, you become a greater version of yourself. Well, that's what I have to say for you and I today. My name is Robert Dean Steele. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me. And I want to also, as well, give you a little promotion. If you like what you've been seeing and hearing, I want you to press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to thank everyone who has become a subscriber. Every single day, I look at my analytics and I see that I have new subscribers. And I want to thank everyone who is subscribing to my YouTube channel. And every day as well, I want you to check out my YouTube shorts every single day. I do a series of YouTube messages, just little tiny vignettes, little tiny snapshots, just 1 minute encouraging videos to encourage you to become a better version of yourself, to help you to navigate the pitfalls and the challenges of life, and to encourage you to become a better version of yourself. So check those out as well. Thank you for doing that. My name is Robert Dean Steele. I want to encourage you to have a great and godly day. And remember, stay patient, stay ready, because what you need is actually beginning to happen, and you're going to become a better version of yourself. Have yourself a great and godly day.